So basically, you give them all your numbers at the end of the year. They're a reporter. Their job is to fit the numbers inside the boxes and tell you this is how much you owe. Yep, that's pretty much what it is. If you have a CPA is a vendor. It could be bookkeeping, there's tax planning, there's taxes. Most CPAs that I find in my history that are going out there, 95% of them are compliance driven only. They're not talking
Yeah.
about strategies or planning methods. Okay. You may get some younger CPAs that are out there that are coming into that because it's a buzz in the industry currently.
Yep.
But there's a true void in the industry out there, which is why I think our particular part or what we've emphasized on is blowing up across the board. It's becoming more and more talked about, popular. So with the methods that we're creating is that we're coming in with strategies, not just for the business, but for them personally to help them understand to actually create a team mentality. And again, if you have a CPA and you have an engagement with them to do your taxes and bookkeeping or whatever, based on the size of your business, they may be paying that CPA $2,000 to $5,000, $10,000 a year, whatever that number is. But they're not your partner in business. You're not going to usually just be able to pick up the phone and have a conversation with them unless they're your friend, because everyone, like a CPA or an attorney, if you call them to say hello or ask them a question, the time clock starts
Yep.
and they're going to send you a bill. So what'll happen is a lot of people in business won't make that phone call because they don't want to invest in something. And that's not that they don't want to invest in business. They may not understand what they're investing in, or they don't know what questions to ask specifically. So they'll call their CPA if they want to buy a piece of equipment, or they'll do something to try to know the numbers because it makes sense. So they ask a very targeted question typically. They're not asking about business experience because, in all honesty, there's a lot of CPAs out there that are good at what they do, but it doesn't mean they're good business people. Okay. Just because you're an accountant and a CPA does not mean you understand the full facet and construct of business.
Yeah.
Same thing with an attorney. An attorney may be good about certain things. And even though they went to law school and they read all the law books and did all the things that need to go through, they're not necessarily a business focused attorney. They may be handling litigation. They may be handling workman's comp. Who knows? They may be a general practice or private injury learning attorney. That doesn't mean that's the person who's going to give you direction. So my biggest thing, and it's not a point to me, it's just a void in the industry, is to find targeted people or targeted people that can help you scale your business if that's your mentality. A lot of times, business owners that of a certain industry will seek out mentoring from other business owners.
Yep.
So that's always a great tool to go after because if you're in business, let's say you're in woodworking as an example, most likely in order to learn some of the caveats or issues that are going on, you talk to some larger companies to find out what they did to get to that size.
Yeah.
Because now you have a model you can try to follow if that person's willing to share it with you. Okay. But just like anything else, and what you need to understand is that if you're giving time or investing time, there's a price to pay for that. All
Yep.
right. And you have to accept that particular fact today because you do get what you pay for. All right. If you walk into a doctor's office, Joey, do you ever question the fact that you're going to pay for service?
Yeah. Of course.
Never, right? You know what's going to happen. And when you sit there and you find out that you have a problem through the discovery, and now you're sitting there with a specialist like a cardiologist, what you're looking for is the cardiologist to come in and say, listen, here's what the results of your test are, questions that we've asked you. Here's where you are because this is the problem that you're facing. We need to find something that's going to take care of that problem for you. And we're going to do this, and we're going to need this procedure. And you say, yes, yes, and yes, please just make it better. Well, you should treat your business in the same concept. Seek out the professional, in my opinion. Okay.
Yep.
Listen to what the diagnosis is through the discovery. Be open book. Don't sit there because you can't. If you go to a doctor and you don't tell them what's going on in your health, what's the sense of going to
Yeah.
the doctor? And there's no reason to hide it. You should have full exposure to that. So now you go through, you answer the questions and figure out what your diagnosis is. And then here's a procedure or here's a process that we're going to tell you to do to move forward. And you say yes, and you go forward. Doesn't mean you should say yes without questions. Understand where it is because the best process, in my opinion, is someone being taught the process so that I can teach you so then you can teach others as well. Because if you're training your successors, maybe it's your other associates or you want to exit the business or whatever, then why would you just want to sit there and do what you're told? Why don't you do what you're told with understanding why? That's
Yeah.
the process that I try to create.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think if the person you're seeking for tax advice, financial structuring, legacy planning, or anything like that doesn't treat you like a doctor would treat you for your medical problems, then that's probably the number one sign that you're not with the right person, right? And think about the last time your CPA or attorney did a diagnostic like that with you. Probably never, right? Because you need someone that understands a lot of different facets that can help you out with that, correct?
Correct. I mean, it's funny. I'll ask how many people, and it was one of the common questions I ask the business owners when I speak to them is, let me ask you, aside from taking care of your taxes, does your accountant ever talk to you anytime before then? No,
Yeah.
unless I have a question for him. Okay. So basically, you give them all your numbers at the end of the year. They're a reporter. Their job is to fit the numbers inside the boxes and tell you this is how much you owe. Yeah, that's
Hmm.
pretty much what it is. And I'm like, and they do a great job. There's a lot of great CPAs out there.
Yeah.
So I'm not
And you
trying to
need a
step.
CPA,
You
right? You
do.
need a
I mean, I
CPA.
work with a bunch of them, okay?
Yeah.
Because they're very good at what they do, and there's some that know more than others because they've
Yeah.
taken the time to learn it. Listen, when you have 9,000 plus pages in the tax code and all
Of
the
course.
revisions that go with it, and they
Yeah.
continually change them every year, and most of the code was written by legislation. When you think
Yeah.
about that here in the United States, that's so you have to know what works for the dynamic and what makes sense for the individual. Yeah, taxes are a pain point, but I'll ask people a lot of times, you know, are you happy with the amount of money you pay in taxes? And most people, I mean, rhetorically will
Yeah.
say, no.
No.
Well, it's a different impression because if someone were to ask me the same question, no, I don't pay enough. And the reason being is if I say it like that is because that means I think I can do more.
Yeah.
Okay. It's not something again to pound your chest to say, "Yeah, I don't pay anything in taxes." Listen, if you look at, people, famous people out there, the wealthy people that are in this world that people know about, things like Trump and Elon Musk and Bill Gates and all these other ones, and they sit there and they say, "Oh, this person doesn't pay taxes." Trust me, they pay plenty of tax. The difference
Yeah.
is they pay it through a different means. Okay, they're not evading taxes; they're doing different strategies. But most of those people there have a team and understand it's not what you make, it's what you keep. And
Hmm.
they understand that and they take it to heart. That's why you'll find that most wealthy people don't want to do anything where they own anything. It's not about walking around saying, "Oh, this is my yacht and this is my building." They could tell you it's their yacht and their building, but their name's probably not on the piece of paper because it's owned by a trust or a different entity or whatever. There's reasons and there's ways that things are done, but they're at those levels. You
Yeah.
don't need to incorporate a lot of those things in a smaller sector because one, they're very expensive to implement. Okay. But they're done for a reason. Okay. It's a choice. And what we try to do is evaluate where you are and say, here's some things you want to do. One of the processes that we'll talk about is as much as we're talking about their business, we want to make sure that they have a trust in place. Why do they want to have a trust? Because I want you to protect what you have, not just for you, but more importantly for your family.
Yeah.
Let's insulate you. Before we talk about anything else, it's the concept. And I use simple analogies all the time. And I'll ask someone, listen, let me ask you a question, Joey. When you drive your car, do you wear a seatbelt?
Yeah.
Okay. Why?
I don't want to be injured
You
if
don't
an
want to be
accident
injured,
happened.
or you don't want to take it. You want to
Don't want
help
to take a
give
risk.
yourself
Yeah.
a better chance of surviving without injury, right?
Yeah.
So that's the same thing. All I'm trying to do is say, listen, folks, let me show you how to wear your seatbelt in business.
Hmm.
That's what we really try to do. I'm not going to tell you how to run your business. I'm not going to tell you that you shouldn't be hiring this person or that person that are there.
Yeah.
Now, if we get into different type of engagement and you're looking for business strategies and business management and structure, then we might get into those particular ones. But I talk about topical, understanding basic business interest and what makes sense. Let me show you how to make your time more effective. Let me show you how to treat your people the proper way. Let me show you the ways that you can keep more of what you make in a process that can help benefit you, but learn to pay yourself first as well because that to me is probably one of my biggest pet peeves is that if you're doing something today, you need to plan for tomorrow.
Yeah.
And it now is the most opportune time to do it. Because if it's done properly, we can actually use it as one of the strategies where we can show you how to take top line revenue and take it away from your declared income and actually put it and fund it into your retirement through a process that allows you to do that. Understanding again the tax codes. Tax codes are not your enemy. The tax codes are your friend. They were written for the people. That is the main reason. Most people think that the IRS in the United States is the big bad wolf. Listen, that has nothing to do with it as a process. When you look at things that change in legislation, listen, there's a thing right now on there's a bill being proposed that the government is trying to impose a 30% national sales tax and get rid of income tax. Okay. And if anybody out there who thinks that a 30% sales tax nationwide is better than income tax,
Mm.
um,
They don't know
you're
income tax. Yeah.
well, you don't understand income tax because if you're doing that, that means you're going to spend 30% of everything that you spend money on
Yeah.
and you will lose. There's no reason that anyone would want to do that, especially the people that don't understand taxes, because that's an everyday thing. Income taxes necessarily is not.
Mm.
Understand that there's a lot of pieces that go on. Don't go with the major flow. Don't go with the headlines. Don't go with that. Let's look and try to learn things as it pertains to you and your specific business and your design. That's where we break it down. There's a lot of similarities, but there's all individualization. And that's why to go out there and seek somebody. And again, a lot of people don't know there are people like me out there in our organizations that can help them understand how the law works with the tax law, with understanding employment law and different pieces
Mm.
that go there that can give them structure and guidance. See, I'm not a CPA and I'm not an attorney. I work with other CPAs and attorneys that are part of our organization. So we can offer that process. I don't offer tax advice. I offer strategy and design based on the overall picture. And when it gets into the specifics, then we start to go into the finite details and telling them what needs to get done, how it gets implied, what the process is. And that's the design of really what we try to incorporate.
No, that's fascinating. And can you dive a bit deeper on what you said? Because I think that probably caught the attention of a lot of people about the strategy. Obviously, depend on the business, depend on your situation, but about declaring a certain aspect of your top line in order to reduce your taxable income. How does that work?
So depending on the type of business, Joey, and way it's structured. So when people form a business today, it could be a sole proprietor, it could be an LLC, it could be an S corp that they come up with, it could be a C corp.
Hmm.
There's different types of partnerships if you're a law firm or different type of professional setup as well. But in order to do a thing called basically deferred comp, which is one of those, or a defined benefit plan, it's a tax code that we utilize that allows you to put based on the revenue that you declare and as far as your earnings, you're allowed to put a certain percentage into what they call as a defined benefit plan. A defined
Hmm.
benefit plan could constitute of a 401k, a cash balance plan, something along those lines. A 40, there's different ones, SEP IRAs, there's different pieces and there's all different types. Okay. But a
Hmm.
defined benefit plan is where you can put in a top line deduction. So let's say the business is making $3 million a year and in that percentage, you're able to put $300,000 or $200,000 away as a top line deduction. That money goes into a deferred qualified plan.
Hmm.
Okay. And that qualified plan would either be a 401k, could be, some type of cash option plan or something along those different things. Okay. Now that could be, you could be funding that with inside of an annuity. You could be putting it into insurance. You could be putting into stocks and bonds, whatever you're looking for. So
Hmm.
there's a way to defer that money. It comes off as a top line deduction. So again, $3 million, you're able to write off, say 200,000. So now your gross revenue is down to $2.8 million.
Hmm.
Well, because you didn't have to pay taxes on that $200,000 in revenue in
Yeah.
your standard tax bracket, let's say it was 20%, you just saved another $40,000 in taxes
Hmm.
this year. And I emphasize that because
Yeah.
when you defer that tax, you're deferring the tax into a later point. The whole concept of that is that once you get to a point of that deferral, so in your 60s or 70s, whatever that may be, what happened is that likely your income is going to be less at that point. So it's going to be less impactful to your tax situation.
Yeah. That's really good. And that's just one of the, I
It's one of
guess, dozens
the
or
many
dozens of
ways that we can
strategies. Yeah.
sit there. Yeah, because there's different ways that you can define out. I mean, we will show people in tax strategies and planning, there
Mm-hmm.
are clients that we've reduced their tax liability 80, 90, or 100%. Okay. And it's not just with one plan. There's no magic bullet, and it's not one plan for everybody that everybody's going to get the same thing. Their dynamic may be in a situation. Listen, we're maybe able to save them 40% in their taxes. Well, I don't care what you're paying at the end of the day. If you're spending 50,000 or 100,000 or $500,000 a year in taxes, and I can save you 40%, it's pretty makes a lot of sense to me to sit there and
Yeah.
have that conversation, at least to see what the options are.
Yeah.
Okay. That's the mentality. Anyone that typically that will engage with us from that process before we actually will allow them to engage, we have to be able to add value to them. Okay. I won't engage with someone if I know I can't help them. And it's not because it's a pride thing. It's because, listen, I'm not going to give you something or have you put up with something that doesn't make sense for you financially. So if
Yeah.
we're going to be engaged with them and, whatever that number is, it's $10,000, whatever. If I can't at least return 4 to 5 or more to one to that number, then it doesn't make sense for us to do work with them,
Yeah.
not financially. Doesn't mean we can't guide them and direct them in different things. However, I try to focus on what we focus on. I have a lot of experience that we can have a lot of different conversations. And, I can talk with a lot of different business types because of that. I don't specialize in three. I specialize in a lot of different ones because businesses are all the same basic concept.
At the end
Then
of the
just
day, yeah.
then it just kind of moves into different products and services.